Good evening, everybody. If you don't already know who I am, I'm Phyllis Chapman, and I'm now president of the Friends of the Bennington Battlefield and in charge of this ceremony. So it's gonna go as I best can do it at this point, and if there's a few slip-ups or whatever, it's because I'm new at the game. But I am delighted to see so many people here, and especially people from different walks of life. We've got people from other states. And I would like to mention very early on in this program that we have many of our elected local officials here, which is very, very fortunate because we know that they are very busy people and it is very difficult to get them to manage to find room in their schedule for this. We have here tonight Jeff Wysocki, Rensselaer County Legislator, and Bruce Petir, another Rensselaer County official, legislator. And we've got New York State Assemblyman Scott Bendit, and our New York State Senator Jake Ashby. And I would like to invite both of those gentlemen one at a time if you'd like to come up and make some remarks. This is Scott Bendit, Representative, New York State Assembly. Thank you.
I'll just make some quick remarks. So I'm pretty lucky. My wife is a Mayflower person. My wife's a person who has relatives that fought in the Revolutionary War. My wife has a relative that was her ancestor, her grandfather was the wagon maker in Albany. And it gives me a lot of sense of pride. And as I told this lady over here, I said, I'm a fiddler on the roof. And, my family came here like 120 years ago. And only 120 years later, after being broke and not speaking English and being discriminated against like other people are, their great-grandson ended up becoming a New York State Assemblyman and a relatively successful businessman and having a great family. And they didn't always have that. And so for me, when I come to events like this, and I'm really so honored to be able to do this in my job. I never expected to be an assemblyman before, and I love doing it. And when I come to places like this, it gives me such a sense of pride to be an American. And I'm looking forward to the ceremony, and thank you for inviting me. And I guess, can I introduce my friend?
Absolutely.
And so I'm going to introduce my friend, who is a veteran who fought for this country also, who is a former assemblyman and a New York State senator, a business owner himself, a terrific dad and husband, our Senator Jacob Ashby.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you today. And I want to thank the Friends of the Bennington Battlefield, Phyllis, and everybody here whose continuous efforts make this happen. And to your credit and for our appreciation, this continues to happen. And, many times in politics we find ourselves in divided times. And it's easy to lose sight of some of the values and the history and the struggles that have borne to us this great privilege in this country that we live in. And thanks to you and these continuous efforts, we revisit what has been given to us each and every year here in Bennington. And people from different states, people from different communities will continue to do that because of your efforts. And that is not only good for us today, but it will be so beneficial for us in our future. And I'm looking to the children that are here today, because those memories and those values and those traditions will continue to be passed down because of these efforts. And I'm just privileged to be a part of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen, and thanks for attending. Reminding everybody that the United States and New York State, Vermont, they're all lands of opportunity where people can start perhaps small, but work their way up, as Mr. Bendit said, and it is a place where people can grow and thrive. So thank you for coming and pointing that out to everybody today. And now getting to our meaning and reason for being here tonight. We're obviously here to commemorate a battle called the Battle of Bennington, which was a Revolutionary War battle. And here, under the leadership of General John Stark, on August 16th, 1777, American militia from New York, Vermont, and Massachusetts, here on this spot, just ordinary people, accomplished the first definitive check on the British campaign of 1777 in New York State, as its commander, General John Burgoyne, sought to proceed from Canada southward to capture New York State and divide those rebellious colonies in half, separating Massachusetts, Connecticut, all of those from the southern states, and he was convinced that would stop people from seeking their freedom. Well, they were wrong, weren't they? Now, that's the formal history book description, but what might it have been like to those participating here on that day in a battle, leaving their farms and their homes, their families, to fight a foreign enemy, invaders? Well, it was hot and sticky, something we've been quite familiar with this summer. It had rained heavily, so it was muddy and mucky. These men were not professional soldiers. They were ordinary people. They were militia. They'd been called to defend Bennington from a raiding party, sent to take away things that didn't belong to them. Not just ammunition and gunpowder, but food and any horses or oxen they could capture. Things Americans could not afford to give up their livelihood. They would not give it up. So knowing that Bennington was in the crosshairs, Stark and his men met them here in the town of Hoosick. The objective was Bennington. You don't wait until the enemy gets to the objective. You proceed and you are proactive. The victory won here, the British defeat, was significant. For 2 months later, almost to the day, Burgoyne surrendered his entire force at Saratoga. His campaign to divide and conquer was over. And Thomas Jefferson later referred to this success as the first link in a chain of success. So the lesson that Bennington teaches us then and now is that progress is usually measured in small steps, even though we wish it was different. That inspiring and unselfish leadership is important. And it's the individual, the ordinary person, doing his or her best that gets things done. Now we will begin our commemoration ceremony this evening with a musket and a cannon salute. The musket salute will be performed by Jonas Spivak and his Green Mountain Boys, and the artillery is provided by 2nd Continental Artillery. So, with no further delay, musket salute.
That scared me. That was scary. Oh no, that's it. Fire the cannon. Fire! I actually felt that. Me too. I felt that. You can feel that one. I felt that.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Prepare to fire. Fire!
Now, while we are still standing, if you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now, if you remain standing, we have a musician, a young lady, who is going to play the national anthem. Thank you. Madison Baldwin, I believe, or Scarlett Machel. Thank you very much, Scarlett. That was lovely. Okay. We usually have a couple of historical documents read at this ceremony, and in some respects, the people that have spoken about this event in the past have far more meaningful things to say about it than we do today, and so you can't get it much better than the two people that are whose words are going to be read after this. Our first speaker is going to be Phil Holland, who is a member of the Friends of the Battlefield. He's also active at the Bennington Museum and Bennington Historical Society. And he is going to read a letter that was found among John Stark's personal papers, General John Stark's personal papers, when he died in 1822. So Phil, read that letter that was in his personal papers. Thank you.
We'll move this forward one little bit. Thanks, Phyllis. Good evening, everybody. How's that? Thomas Jefferson had begun his second term in office when he wrote that letter to John Stark, then 77 years old and in retirement with Molly in New Hampshire. As I read the letter, consider that it is very likely that Jefferson stood on this hilltop, perhaps in the very place that I am standing, when he visited this battlefield with James Madison in 1791. Monticello, August 19th, 1805. Respected General, I have recently learned through the channel of the newspapers, and learned with great pleasure, that you are still in life and enjoy health and spirits. The victories of Bennington, the first link in that chain of successes which issued in the surrender of Saratoga, are still fresh in the memory of every American, and the name of him who achieved them dear to his heart. Permit, therefore, a stranger, who knows you only by the services you have rendered, to express the sincere emotion of affection and attachment that he felt on learning that your days were thus prolonged, and his fervent prayers that they may be continued in comfort, and the conviction that, when they end, your memory will be cherished by those who have come after you, as of one who has not lived in vain for his country. I salute you, venerable patriot and general, with affection and reverence. Thomas Jefferson.
Thank you, Phil. That was an excellent reading of a very, very moving letter. Now, John Stark lived to be quite an elderly gentleman and was back in his home state of New Hampshire. And for many, many years, starting with the very first year after the battle, there had been some kind of celebration in Bennington of the battle. This is one of the most consistently and oldest type of celebration on a battle in the country. So that in 1778, they started celebrating the Battle of Bennington. And they very often asked John Stark to attend. Now here is a letter that Peter Shaphock is going to read, a letter from John Stark to the citizens of Bennington that was written in the year 1809. So before we begin with Peter's reading of this letter, I would like to note that Peter has been the president of the Friends of the Bennington Battlefield since it became the new iteration back in 2016. He's recently decided to step down, and I have taken his place, but I couldn't take his place. He has been such a faithful steward of the battle, of its importance, of its memories, and a great service to the youth of this community in sharing the importance of that battle and giving them some pride in their history. He's an avid reenactor, has been doing it for many years, and I'm looking forward to him doing many more after that. But I wanted to give Peter Shaphock a round of applause for his past service to the Friends and what he'll do in the future. And so now, Peter, if you would come and read the words of John Stark. Thank you. You are a tall drink of water, sir.
Yeah, I'm good. All right, if I could speak loudly enough. Thank you, Phyllis, for your kind words. I just have to say that I certainly didn't do things by myself. Our group has been fantastic over these years working on remembering this battle and the honor, and in honoring those who sacrificed here on both sides, which is something we sometimes forget about, that some of the bad guys were also good guys. But let me begin. This is from John Stark at my quarters, Derryfield, 31st July, 1809. My friends and fellow soldiers, I received yours of the 22nd instant, containing your fervent expressions of friendship and your very polite invitations to meet with you to celebrate the 16th of August in Bennington. As you observe, I can never forget that I commanded American troops on the day of Bennington. They were men who were not learned in the art of submission and had not been trained in the art of war, but our astonishing success taught the enemies of liberty that undisciplined freemen are superior to veteran slaves. And I fear we will have to teach these lessons anew in this perfidious nation. Nothing could afford me more pleasure than to meet with the Sons of Liberty on that fortunate spot. But as you justly anticipate, the infirmities of old age will not permit, for I am now 81 years old, and the lamp of life is almost spent. I have late had many invitations, but was not ready, for there was not enough oil in the lamp. You say you wish your young men to see me, but you who have seen me can tell them that I was never much to look at, and certainly cannot be worth their seeing now. In case of my not being able to attend you, I wish you my sentiments, and you shall have them. as free as the air we breathe. As I was then, I am now, the friend of equal rights of men, of representative democracy, of republicanism, and the Declaration of Independence, the great charter of our national rights, and of course the friend of the indissoluble union and constitution of the states. I am the enemy of all foreign influence, for all foreign influence is the influence of tyranny. This is the only chosen spot for liberty. This is the only republic on the earth. You well know, gentlemen, that at the time of the event you celebrate, there was a powerful British faction in the country called Tories, and a material part of the force we had to contend with at Bennington. This faction was rankling in our councils till they laid down the foundation for the subversion of our liberties. But by good sentinels at our outposts we were appraised of our danger, and the sons of freedom beat the alarm, and as at Bennington, they came, they saw, they conquered. But again, the faction has rallied to charge again, and they have been beaten. It is my orders now, and will be the last of my orders to all our volunteers, to look well to their sentries. For there is dangerous British party in this country, lurking in their hiding places, more dangerous than all our foreign enemies. And wherever they shall appear openly to render the same account of them as was given in Bennington, let them assume what name they will, not doubting that the ladies of our patriotic ladies would be furnished them with every aid, as they were in Bennington 77, and even dismantled their beds to furnish cords to secure the prisoners. I shall remember, gentlemen, the respect and the inhabitants of Bennington and its neighborhood show me. Till I go to the country from which no traveler returns, I must soon receive marching orders. John Stark. P.S. I will give you my volunteer toast. Live free or die. Death is not the greatest of evils.
Thank you, Peter. And probably most of you are aware that he just recited the state motto of New Hampshire, live free or die. We have had a group of students here today on the battlefield, on the lower part of the battlefield, participating in a day at the battlefield for History Camp, which is a program that fourth grade teacher Katie Brownell has been running out of Hoosick Falls Central for the last few years. It's a wonderful experience. Kids get to visit very many different historic places, learn about our history, and do participatory activities that really bring history home to them. They are going to participate in our ceremony tonight. I have no idea exactly what they're going to do, but what they will be reading is their own words. And so I'm going to turn this over to Katie Brownell at this point, because she will know who to call and all the names and so on. So please, Katie, thank you.
Thank you so much. The Hoosick Falls Central School Living History Summer Institute began with the understanding that children learn best through experiences and interactive opportunities. To put it simply, children learn through play. If we can give them opportunities to play with historic experiences and settings, we can help them not only to learn material, but to experience it so that it becomes deeply relevant to them. The intention of the Institute is simple: to help students connect with their local history in ways that are meaningful to them so that they will have the desire to learn more. Since 2018, Hoosick Falls students who have completed grades 4 through 6 have had the opportunity to write an essay and apply to the Institute, which is entirely funded by the school district. Traditionally, the highlight of the week is today, the encampment overnight at the Bennington Battlefield State Historic Site. So here's a riddle. What do you get when you have 18 kids cooking their own meals over a campfire, camping overnight in historic wedge tents, which they set up themselves today, and learning how to march and drill just like the militia who served here 247 years ago? The answer is memories that last a lifetime. But perhaps most important is that these students are also creating their own stories and history as it relates to historic places and events. As we sit here today, or stand, to remember and honor those who have bravely served our country, let us do our best to pass our interest and appreciation of this shared heritage onto a future generation of learners. Our hope is that they may be empowered to make their own memories, to see history as something to be discovered, something alive and constantly growing and changing. Let us help our children to see themselves within the vastness of our growing history so that they may one day take their place in sharing and preserving this heritage. You will now hear from some of them sharing their own words. These are from their essays that they used to apply to Living History Summer Institute. So, Wesley.
I think it's important for students to know local history so they can better understand their community. If you know local history, you can understand where battles took place, like how the Battle of Bennington wasn't in Bennington, and it was actually near Hoosick in the Walloon Sac River. All students should know local history so they can know what made their town into their town.
And Braylon?
I really like social studies because I can get to learn new things about my country and how people defeated the British.
Beautiful. Allison.
It is fun to learn about the place you live and see sites where history took place.
I am also interested in how my family history in New England is like family histories in New York. I think it would be fun to learn about the similarities and differences between our families. It's cool that you can go to Bennington Battlefield and be there. It's cool to think that you're right there where the war happened. If we didn't know our history, we wouldn't know that the battle happened here.
Beautiful. Good job.
I feel that Living History Summer Institute would help me enjoy learning more about history and the benefits of where everyone started. Not to mention my sister went and she told me how great it was.
She's here helping, by the way. She came back to help.
Sleeping at the battlefield will help us understand how to sleep like a soldier. Another reason is I can look at things they made and used in the past.
I like to learn new things and I find the American Revolution fascinating. I think it is very important for everyone to learn about American history.
And our last speaker.
It's important to learn about your local history because a lot of history happened here. Another detail is people don't know how lucky we are because history has its eyes on you. And yes, that is a famous song from Hamilton. The last detail is you can compare how things were in the past and how they are now. That's why it's important to learn about your local history.
Thank you so much.
Just a little bit of adjustment here. Okay, well, thank you so much to the fourth grade history camp participants and Mrs. Brownell for organizing it all and keeping everybody straight. But it's so important to know that our children they don't lie. They know what's important, and they are interested in their history. They are interested in people, and they like to learn. And so it's important that there's people around and opportunities to enlarge and broaden their experience so that they can learn through different methods. There is the learning through reading, but there's learning through participating. And as Mrs. Brownell said, that's one of the most powerful ways to learn. So I salute all of you for coming. Thank you. Now we are coming up on a very important anniversary here at the battlefield, as well as our country as a whole. In 2026, we will be celebrating the 250th of the Declaration of Independence, but the battlefield will celebrate its 250th in 2027. And it's a very important anniversary also for Vermont, because that is the same year in which they first became their own sovereign nation in 1777. They were their own little country before we became a nation called the United States, and they didn't join the Union until 1792. So there were 14 years that Vermont was its own country. So these anniversaries that are coming up are very important to us here locally, and one of our board members here on the FOBB, the Friends of the Bennington Battlefield, Jonas Spivak, has been spearheading much of the different celebrations and events that are going to commemorate these important anniversaries, and I'm going to ask him just to speak a couple of words about the 250ths coming up. That's plural. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You kind of stole my thunder, just saying. Actually, it's clear looking around this crowd here, many of you know what is coming. But for those of you who don't, it's worth saying and saying again that the 250th is coming. The 250th, what, is a good question. And that is, of course, as Phyllis said, is the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence in 1776. So I call it the 250th, but it's also being called the semi-quincentennial, which has a ring to it, but it doesn't quite capture it. There's another name for it, the bicentenary. Now that just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? Yeah, I don't think that's going to catch on. For me, it's generally simply the 250th, but plural, as Phyllis said, and that is important because we're not going to wait until 2026. In fact, we're starting in 2025 with the capture of Fort Ticonderoga and Crown Point by Ethan Allen and the Green Mountain Boys. This is America's first victory in the American Revolution. And we cannot miss that. So we're starting a year early. And of course, we'll be celebrating with the entire country in 2026 with the Declaration of Independence, right? 4th of July. And we hope to use the gravitational pull of that event, as we saw in the bicentennial, to propel us to our signature anniversary year in 2027 with the battles of Hubbardton and Bennington, and as Phyllis mentioned, the founding of Vermont, born in the crucible of revolution, an independent republic for 14 years. On the program, it says, looking to the 250th. That's especially appropriate today, because at this point, the years of planning that we have been going into the 250th anniversaries is now truly upon us. And after today, those 250th anniversaries commence in earnest. So before I finish, I would like to again thank Katie Brownell and her students for inspiring the next generations of stewards of this history. Thank you all. Thank you for doing that. And thank you, kids. Never forget. So with that, I would like to say thank you for coming to this 247th commemoration of the Battle of Bennington and for the gateway to those 250th anniversaries that are now upon us. And I look forward to seeing you next year and the year after that, and for our grand finale in 2027. Thank you all so much for coming, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Jonah. We are going to have another musical selection today, and that's going to be played by Scarlett. She's going to be playing something that I grew up learning as My Country 'Tis of Thee. We learned in elementary school a lot of these patriotic songs in music class. I don't know if they do that anymore, but I remember it very well. It also happens to be current and chronologically correct for the Revolutionary era, because it was a song that originated in our mother country. God Save the King, or God Save the Queen. It's the same melody, but we took it and put it to our own words for our own purposes. So Scarlett is going to play My Country 'Tis of Thee. Thank you, Scarlett. Well, we have come to the section of the program here, which is one of the main reasons we are here tonight, and that is to make an outward, visible, and concise sign and movement and motion to recognize how we appreciate what people did here 247 years ago. We're going to be asking certain groups to come up and lay wreaths to commemorate the sacrifice of the men who fought at the Battle of Bennington. Before we do that, I would like to mention, just briefly, that we have SAR groups here, Sons of the American Revolution. We have Daughters of the American Revolution. We have other groups such as Rebecca Hauer is here tonight, and she is president of the Friends of the Descendants of the Green Mountain Boys. She assured me that there is over 300 members right now, so I would say that Ethan was very prolific. But we also have people from New Hampshire, we have people from Vermont, we have people from New York. And these organizations have been in existence for some time. We don't always see them advertised on television or whatever, but they're there and they are important and dedicated stewards of a very significant period in our history. When we, as a group of people who've been living under colonial rule, decided that we were something else and that we were going to work to make that become alive and make it an established nation, independent on our own. So these people, in their work through their organizations, are continually reminding us of who we are, why we're here, and how we got here. So I'm very honored to have so many groups here coming tonight, and we're going to begin the wreath laying procedures, which will be a visible sign to not only how much we appreciate what people did here 247 years ago, but how much we appreciate these groups that keep their memories alive. So, we will begin, and please understand it's the first time I have done this wreath laying ceremony, and I will probably get a few things mixed up. But if I do, it is certainly no slandering type of belief against any group or whatever. It'd be my own mistake. But I'm so proud to have you here. We are going to have someone put a wreath up for Mary Lou Chakotay, are we? Yes, yes. Mary Lou Chakotay is the site administrator of the Bennington Battle Monument. She is unable to be here tonight, but she is laying a wreath for the Bennington Battle Monument, Vermont State Historic Sites. Next, we have two people who are going to lay a wreath. We have Janet Weaver, who is the DAR Vermont State Regent, and Suzanne Heskey, who is the DAR Historian General for the National DAR. And so Janet, I believe, is going to make a brief statement while Suzanne places the wreath.
Thank you, Phyllis. We, the members of the Vermont State Society and the National Society American Revolution, now lay this wreath in grateful recognition of the sacrifice and service of the men and women who fought for independence. In remembering the Battle of Bennington, we honor and pay tribute to all the patriots who served our nation with integrity and devotion.
Thank you. Next we have Peter Hormel, who is going to lay a wreath for, he's the second vice president of the Walloomsac Battle chapter of the Sons of the American Revolution. Thank you. Carmen Bogle, who will lay a wreath for the Ondawa Cambridge DAR. Now we have Tim Mabey, who is going to lay a wreath for the Vermont State chapter of the SAR. And I'm pleased to invite Heather Mabey, who's the chair of the New York State Parks Regional Commission and with the Saratoga chapter of the DAR. If she would come and lay a wreath. We next call Curtis Herman, commander of the New Hampshire SAR Color Guard and the first vice president of the New Hampshire SAR, Curtis Herman.
Is there one?
And next we have Chuck Crawford, Saratoga Battle Chapter SAR. And then we will have Michael Golden, Military Order of the World Wars. Thank you. Is there anyone that I missed? Wonderful. Thank you for acknowledging with respect the sacrifice of our forefathers at this battle. And at this point in time, we will have a second cannon and musket salute, again from the Green Mountain Boys and 2nd Continental Artillery.
Good. Take care. Halt. Green Mountain Boys and the assembled militias and militaries of the United States would like to salute you for turning out tonight, supporting this memory. And we invite you all to continue with this tomorrow at the Liberty Pole raising at
St. Peter's Church and the Food Truck Festival at 2 p.m., 2:30 ceremony, sir.
in Bennington, Vermont, followed by a parade on Sunday. Present. Arms. Thank you. Shoulder. Fire.
Many thanks to Jones for that. And the Green Mountain Boys, and to the 2nd Continental Artillery, Mike Skelly, Michael Companion, for making our ceremony so special. And now before we leave tonight, just like to thank you all for coming. It was so good to see such a big, enthusiastic crowd here. And we do invite you to keep us in your minds when thinking about the 250ths coming up, and that we are very important here. We are the Friends of the Bennington Battlefield. We're a 501c3 that works in collaboration with the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation to put on events here at the battlefield. At the back of your program, you will see a membership application to join the Friends. The dues are very low, and we'd be happy to give you a pin for your application to join the Friends, but we would love to have you join us and support us in our future endeavors. Thank you very much for this evening, and I'm happy to have you come. Thank you so much.